representing Christ, man, it permeates everything. And that's why I get excited talking about money and finances, because, it's not an accident that Jesus talked more about money than he did love, and yet we want to relate Jesus with love. We don't relate him to money, but he talked more about money. And it's a reason why he did that, because money does, our behavior and our attitude towards money, it permeates everything.
Yeah.
And so before you can go and reach the loss, in your workplace, how are you doing with your lifestyle, with, keeping your word, working hard, representing, if you're going to work talking about, bill collectors are chasing you, then why would I want to serve that God that you serve?
That's great. That's great.
One of the things that God brought to my heart today is we as Christians need to file our taxes correctly. Right? We ain't trying to get a short. We have to give to Caesar what Caesar's, right?
Render unto Caesar.
And so I think we was like, yeah, God is going to show me favor. He's showing me favor with these taxes. And no, you do them correctly.
Yeah.
Right? And why would God bring you more finances, or if we're not taking care of the little that we have, and then cheating the government? Exactly. Like, he sees that. He's got
right.
Well, you can't. God doesn't operate within things that are out of order. He can't operate in that. And so that you mentioned that about taxes, and I laugh because that's something that I have to tell myself every year: render unto Caesar. It's time to hear just render unto Caesar, and trust him with that. That, hey, if I owe a lot of money, it ain't my money anyway.
Yes.
Right.
So,
hey, you don't want that monkey on your back either. The IRS, they finna come up and snatch everything.
So what struggles do you find when trying to serve him in business? Like, you talked about struggles in business. It's tough, it's challenging. What struggles come up usually?
There's always the struggle of just dealing with the day-to-day, the mundane, sometimes.
Okay.
When you own a business, a lot of people like to look at the glamorous side of it, but one of the things that I'm dealing with even now this week is the fact that I don't have the opportunity to shut it down. Everybody can take a vacation, but sometimes, as a business owner, you don't have the luxury of being able to unplug and leave the cell phone behind, or not check an email, or whatever the case may be. And so sometimes that could be a struggle. And that's one of them. Dealing with people can be challenging sometimes. Everybody, especially as your organization grows, everybody's not where you are. And, so, I heard you joking about it, about going to work earlier, but that's the reality. You were training somebody and they didn't show up. What though? Them not showing up, probably you didn't lose any sleep over that, because it wasn't your company,
right? Exactly.
And
but
when it's your company, not only do you have to fill in, but sometimes you may have to figure it out. Like, how are we gonna deal with this issue? So there's always challenges, but that's
now talk to us about what is a king. You were starting to share with me that earlier. So what is a king? Well, or the definition of a king and a priest in the marketplace?
And that's the Bible talks about kings and priests. And let me make sure that people understand and they're clear that when I mention king in the marketplace, I'm not talking about a place of royalty or authority or whatever, the Christianese talk.
Okay.
It's just a separate calling. So I believe that there's people, everybody understands that ministers or priests are called into the ministry, right? And we like, he's called to be a priest, he's called into that. Well, I believe God calls kings as well. And what a king is someone who is called to do business or to lead in the marketplace. That's their calling. But the beauty about our calling is that God just requires us to use our resources to fund his kingdom, to do things in the kingdom. So, like, brother David here, you go and serve the homeless, right? So, as a king, I go, man, I'm not giving up, my Saturdays going to serve the homeless. That's not where my heart is called. But where I can create resources, I love doing business. And so I take the resources that God has blessed my business to fund you going and doing what God has called you. That's how the body operates.
So you don't have to. So I think you have to slow down there. You don't have to be everywhere as a king.
Not only do I not have to be everywhere, but I may not be called into these areas.
That's good.
But the resources that God has blessed me to be able to create, that's what they're for. And I'll kind of segue into understanding as a business person how we have to think when it comes to money. Because as God increases your business and your influence, well, guess what? You get more money too, right? The profits go up. Well, you're either going to do one or two things. You're going to buy bigger stuff, bigger house, bigger car, boat, airplane, yada, yada, right? Well, and this was a game changer for Victoria and I, what we did is when we learned the principle of capping our personal income. So we said, okay, our household, when we get to, and I'm going to just be honest and transparent, we said we're going to cap our household income at $90,000 a year, right? So
I love this. I'm sorry, I'm smiling.
So we said that's as much as we're going to earn, and everything else is going to go into the kingdom.
It's called the circle principle, right?
The circle principle, yeah. I didn't know the formal name, but that's I call it capping your income, putting a lid on it, basically.
Rabbi David Lappin talks about that.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
a great book. Right.
And so so you cap your income, and then everything else goes out. So I hear people say, "Man, I want to be able to give big to my church or to my whatever favorite ministry or whatever." And it's like, well, it's easy. If you make 100,000, you cap your income at 70, you give 30,000 away every year. That's what you do. But really what it does is it allows God now to really use you as a conduit, because everything's not stopping with you. And you're not trying to, and one of the things when I heard this whole principle, and my wife and I, we really got on board with it. I assumed that this meant that it was going to somehow cap our lifestyle.
Wow. Okay.
Trust me, our lifestyle is like I said. I talked about what she just did. Yeah. She just went and spent, and about to go back to England. And visit. My wife's from England, so her mother and her siblings, everybody. She's the only one here in America. So she goes to visit, and she's going to visit her family. But my mom had all my life talked about going to Europe and traveling, and never has. And so she was able to go and take that trip. And we were able, to send both of them to Rome and to Paris, and just have this trip of a lifetime. Man. Our lifestyle has not been capped at all. God, and it goes
talk about it. Yes.
God being able to do so much more with our little. But you bring that all the way back down to the basic. When people try to understand, how in the world can I tithe when I can't pay my bills now? Well, God can do more if you allow him to bless that 90%. Then you can do it 100%. And so when we capped our income, we see like God is doing a lot with 90,000, then more than I could ever imagine, and I don't want it to make it about things, but I want people to understand that this principle is a game changer, because y'all wouldn't be talking to me now if it wasn't for that.
After you told your testimony at the King's Ministry, man, I got on the phone and I talked to Damien about it, and he was blown away, as well as I was. let's talk about, tell the people that you give more than your household income is.
Yeah.
Is that something, can you share that?
I mean, I
I think
it's kind of embarrassing, but I think some people may need to hear this.
Yeah.
We give a lot.
Yeah.
And I say that because most people think, you give because you're a millionaire. We're not.
Yeah.
Never been. My company doesn't even do $1 million a year. My company, and I'm talking about gross.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But our giving this, past in 2017 was in 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just our tracked giving. That's just money that we track.
Yeah.
You talked about the vacation ministry. And you said, we'd give free or nearly free. And I want people to understand what nearly free means. Nearly free means they have to pay the cleaning fee for a 3-bedroom beach house for a week.
In Panama
City Beach.
Yeah, David told me about this, and I already told my girlfriend if and when we get engaged / and then married, we're gonna be calling Pastor Bobby because he said this thing down there nice,
bro.
He said, man, he had a good time.
I called Dave and I was like, bro, I wasn't expecting this.
But I talk to that point about not doing something. When you do it with excellence. Because you served David in a way that he never thought, and he was just blown away. Now, he refreshed with his family and stuff like that, and the place is nice.
Yeah, that was it was a funny story, but God basically gave my wife and I this vision, and she brought the lady's perspective to it. Okay, and so when God gave us this vision to do this vacation ministry and buy this property down there he gave us the vision in 2008. We didn't close on the house until 2012. It was a 4-year process. But what I looked at from a man's standpoint, right, is that as a young married man, the struggle about going on vacation is the expense. And so it was like, man, I can't afford, but you get your family down there after you didn't pay for wherever you stay. Everybody's looking at you going, what are we going to do? And you're like, we doing it. We here. Y'all better go put it in the dirt somewhere. But my wife said, but for a woman, she needs a space that is clean and just where she could relax and go, okay, I don't have to pick up here or I don't have to do it. So, those two perspectives came together to what you experienced down there at the
and we was living it up, and I had money to spare.
and that's the point.
That's the point.
So now you can do things, and check this out. We don't have any Wi-Fi. We don't have any televisions in there. So you're forced to connect with your family, and just connect with one another. And so that's what we do. And I just wanted to share that. Yeah, we don't allow non-married couples to go.
Yeah,
it's strictly to allow families to rejuvenate, to refresh, and to reconnect. And and we get to hear all the testimonies of that happening. So
you gonna get out after we get married. we gonna have to refresh some more anyway.
I actually owe Bobby a couple dishes, man. My 2-year-old, I don't know what this
break a spoon.
She broke a spoon, bro. Like
how?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
talk about somebody who is struggling finding their purpose. What should they do?
Well, first and foremost, where does our purpose come from? It comes from God, right? And God says, I knew you before I even placed you in the womb. So if you are struggling finding your purpose, it's not something you even need to look for. What it is, if you're struggling, is because maybe you're struggling being obedient to everything God has called you to do.
That's good.
And I didn't know this is where I would be at